Every few years, Miami braces for destruction. The ocean rises through its streets and forces its way under front doors before receding again, leaving behind the smell of brine and the shimmer of salt. Drive through the city a week later, and construction is already erasing the damage. People sweep glass from sidewalks, laughing with neighbors while pressure washers hiss, clearing salt from driveways. A woman photographs a hurricane sale sign, faded red on sun-bleached plywood. Caption: "See you next year, cyclone." 17 likes already. It's not denial. It's survival choreography, a dance Miami has practiced for a century. Rebuild, repaint, relaunch. The rhythm is as predictable as rent increases. That's not a foundation. That's a dare. And the people who live here accept it. It's muscle memory, the belief that they can rebuild faster than nature can erase them. Miami sits just 8 feet above sea level at its highest point, lower than a 2-story house. It's not optimism. It's amnesia by necessity, a practiced indifference to the tide. The city was never meant to hold buildings. It was meant to hold mangroves. Roots thick as cables, tangled and endless. Water, so clear you could see straight through to the limestone below. And once it did, would you stay, knowing the next storm will come? Not if, but when. The answer is written in the city's bones. And in a storm, no one alive remembers. Miami was never meant to stand this close to the sea. In 1926, a hurricane erased that fact from denial back into truth. By morning, families woke to streets full of fish, barracuda and snapper, still thrashing in the shallows 3 miles from shore. Boats set on rooftops. By nightfall, Miami was a swamp again. The dream washed out to sea. This land has a memory. It remembers being ocean floor. And the ocean remembers too. But the city rebuilt, because forgetting was cheaper than moving. Ever since, Miami has lived on borrowed time. A city pretending limestone is solid ground. The limestone breathes, drinking in the salt and the rain until the waterline rises from below. Today, the same pattern repeats, only faster and at higher stakes. In the design district, a 1950s diner squats beneath a glass tower on 20-foot pilings. Luxury is sold with the illusion that the ocean will always stay outside the glass. Each new tower rises like a promise. Paramount Miami World Center, Brickell Heights, 1000 Museum. But the people building those towers know better. They're just betting they'll sell before the foundation cracks. If your city's foundation was dissolving beneath you, would you still call it home? Because Miami's skyline isn't built on hope. It's built on bailout money. That bailout money tells a story, one where disaster creates winners and losers before the floodwaters even recede. Every year, Miami floods, and every year, money flows faster than the water. When the insurance companies left, the government stepped in. Federal flood programs wrote checks no private company would touch, and the market treated disaster as an opportunity for extraction. Because here, risk is just another form of currency. The higher the flood zone, the lower the purchase price, and the faster the flip. A storm wipes out a street. Investors move in before the drywall's dry. Condos pre-sell on virtual renderings labeled flood-proof, sustainable, climate-ready. The illusion of resilience sells faster than the structures themselves. In Little Haiti, rent has doubled in 5 years. Not because the neighborhood transformed, but because it sits 8 feet above sea level. Elevation became luxury. Families who once fled floods are now pushed out by the same logic that rebuilt the coast. Higher ground for those who can pay for it. After Hurricane Maria, over 100,000 Puerto Ricans fled to Florida. Thousands came to Miami. Higher ground, they thought. Safer ground. But the ocean doesn't honor migration papers. They traded one hurricane for another. Only this time, it moves slower. At an auction inside the Miami Beach Convention Center, a man in a tailored suit buys 3 foreclosed bungalows in Shorecrest for $400,000 each. He'll list them at $850 after minimal renovation. Across town, a family still waits in a motel for FEMA to return their call, 6 months since the storm. Their temporary housing funds expire next week. If you could profit from disaster, knowing someone else would pay the price, would you? Because here, disaster isn't an interruption. It's an industry. Federal aid rebuilds the roads while private equity flips the ruins. The illusion of resilience becomes the economy itself. A cycle so profitable that stopping it would cost more than surviving it again. Hope isn't faith, it's financing. But for the people who stay, risk isn't a calculation, it's a calling. That calling, the one that keeps people here, has a name. Outsiders call it resilience. Miamians call it conditioning. You adapt because you have to bore the windows, fill the tanks, memorize the drill. And over time, that adaptation starts to feel like strength. The city wears it proudly, resilient Miami. But resilience is just endurance dressed up as civic pride, a word that makes economic captivity sound like choice. It's what you call it when you can't afford to leave. Walk through Little Havana during a hurricane warning. 3 generations balance on one ladder, boarding the same windows, the rhythm passed down like recipes. Someone's firing up a grill. Battery radios buzz with storm tracks. Kids run barefoot between houses, and the smell of charcoal mixes with gasoline from generators. It's half tailgate, half evacuation drill, and entirely Miami. For one grandmother, ritual takes another form. Lighting candles to La Caridad del Cabra. Not to stop the storm, but to endure it. After every storm, the same message appears spray-painted on plywood across the city. We'll be back. Not defiance, not optimism, just a promise written in the language of inevitability. And when the wind finally dies, the first question isn't, are you safe? It's, when will power come back? The answer to that, not safety, but electricity, marks when life begins again. Safety has been redefined as convenience. For some, rebuilding is economic routine masquerading as recovery. The roofer makes his year's income in 6 weeks. The bartender says her best tips come right after evacuation orders. Here, the storm season isn't a disaster, it's an economy. When the shutters open again, the sound of hammers echoes through humid streets. Salsa and Son Cubano blare from open windows, horns cutting through heavy air, bass lines shaking walls. The rhythm masks trauma, turning rebuilding into celebration. Because in Miami, the hurricane isn't the enemy anymore. It's part of the calendar, as predictable as summer, as inevitable as rent. For Miami, survival has become belonging. How long can you live beside danger before you stop seeing it? But the people here are still playing a game where the water always recedes. Except lately, it doesn't. It bubbles up through storm drains on cloudless days. And this time, it's not leaving. At first, the floods felt like mistakes. A storm on the radar, a tide that ran too high, a clogged drain or two. But then they started showing up without the storm. Street by street, Miami began to drown on sunny days. Water bubbling through storm grates, spreading across asphalt in slow motion. Clear, quiet, almost polite. People posted photos of fish swimming through parking lots. Caption #NoRainToday. Because the sea isn't rising anymore. It's seeping. Through limestone. Through pipes. Through the floor of every promise the city ever made. Underneath Miami lies a sponge, not a rock. Porous limestone, full of tiny tunnels carved by ancient coral. You can build seawalls, raise roads, pump water, but you can't tell a sponge to stop drinking. Now the ocean doesn't crash the gates. It comes from below. Saltwater pushes up through the aquifer, mixing with the freshwater the city depends on. In some wells, the line between drinkable and deadly moves a few inches every month. And yet, development continues. Luxury towers marketed as climate resilient build atop water that already tastes of salt. Investors call it adaptation. Scientists call it denial with better lighting. In Shorecrest, tides now reach doorsteps once considered safe. In Brickell, pumps roar louder than traffic. And in neighborhoods like Little River, families stack sandbags not against hurricanes, but against the moon. Because that's what causes it now. The moon. The gravitational pull that turns high tide into disaster. People joke about it online. Moon flood season again. Would you notice if the end came 1 inch at a time? But behind the humor is a quiet panic. The realization that the city's war with water is no longer a battle, but a surrender. And still, Miami smiles for the cameras. It hosts festivals, sells condos, prints shirts that say "Rising Together." But the truth is simpler. The city isn't rising. The water is. And it's coming from beneath the feet of everyone who thought they were safe. But if the future is certain collapse, What is the only logical response? And yet, somehow, as the tides rise, so does the music. Because leaving would mean admitting defeat, and Miami doesn't do surrender. It turns disaster into choreography. Every hurricane season, speakers thump louder than the thunder. Every blackout becomes a block party. Every rebuilding, an act of rhythm, not resilience. To outsiders, it looks like denial. But to those who call this place home, it's something deeper. A kind of rebellion that says, if the sea takes everything, it won't take the joy. The music here doesn't just survive the flood, it floats on it. Salsa, reggaeton, and old-school Cuban sun spill from open windows. Bass lines ripple through flooded streets. You could mistake it for madness, but it's actually memory. People remembering that they've rebuilt before, and they will again. A grandmother once said, if we stop dancing, the city dies faster. She wasn't joking. Every city pretends it will last forever. Miami just does it louder, in brighter colors, with better music. Because in Miami, survival isn't endurance, it's style. Defiance, dressed in rhythm. It's the same spirit that paints will be back after every storm. That lights candles to La Caridad del Cabra, not to stop the wind, but to face it with grace. That keeps the grills lit even when the sky turns black. And when the next storm hits, they'll do it all again. Not because they think the city will last forever, but because it deserves to be lived in until the last possible moment. Maybe that's not denial. Maybe that's the most human thing we do, dancing while the stage collapses. Miami doesn't wait for rescue. It writes its own after-party at the edge of extinction. Because if the future is water, then this city, this experiment in defiant joy, will be the one that learned how to dance on it.